Yes, but when it comes to the, I saw some rumors on this, but we have no announcements to make yet about partners who will be invited, like the EU or the IP4 or Ukraine, etc. So no announcements yet at the moment. The summit is still about 5-6 weeks away from now, but of course, in due course, we will make all the announcements. A bit louder.
Yes, good morning. Please explain why 3.5% plus 1.5%.
Well, we are discussing about clear numbers here, but I'm not going to confirm any numbers which are being rumored now. So totally fine, you do this, but I cannot do that because we are still discussing, so you will hear no numbers from me. But it is true that when it comes to the core defense spending, we need to do much, much more. One, because we need all the capabilities in place in time to be able, as we know, the Russians will, between 3 to 5 years from now, have reconstituted themselves. This is what we are hearing all over NATO. So we have to be ready for that. There's also a clear demand from our biggest ally to make sure that we equalize in terms of spending with what the US is doing and what the Europeans and Canada are doing. And next to the Russian threat, there is of course the Chinese build-up, we have terrorism. So taking care of all of this, we have to spend more, and we have to think about what we can do to make sure that we have all the defense-related expenditures in place. For example, to make sure that bridges, yes, are there for you and me to drive our cars, but also, if necessary, to make sure that the bridge will hold a tank. So all these expenditures have to be taken into account. Sure.
Mr. Secretary General, Putin refuses to come to Istanbul. Do you think Putin really wants to negotiate?
Well, clearly, Ukraine is ready. Ukraine is ready to commit to a ceasefire and immediate negotiations. That's absolutely clear. The ball is now clearly in Russia's court. They have to explain what they are doing, why they are here or not, and with what team or whatever. But let's make sure that we all understand that the ball is in their court. Ukraine is wanting to start the negotiations as soon as possible, and as I said before, it is thanks to the Americans and President Trump that the deadlock has been broken. It's now up to the Russians to make sure they take the next steps necessary.
So, what assess Turkey's role in the Russia-Ukraine negotiations, and what should we expect from these negotiations?
Well, Turkey plays a big role here because Turkey has good relations with all relevant partners and is seen as a serious venue, and also, let's say, you have the convening power, you have the people with your foreign minister, your president, to help to bring these talks to a good end. So Turkey is important here. But obviously, that can only happen if the Russians show up with a relevant delegation. So we have to see what happens over the next coming days. I'm still cautiously optimistic that if also the Russians are willing to play ball, and not only the Ukrainians are doing this, they're doing it, but also the Russians, that you could get to some breakthroughs over the next couple of weeks. I'm still cautiously optimistic.
Secretary General, what do you think of Germany continuing to withhold their delivery of Eurofighters to Turkey following the arrest of Imamoglu? Is this the right way to deal with the partner and the alliance, and to link defense policy issues to principles such as rule of law?
Generally speaking, we as NATO encourage allies not to have restrictions on arms sales between allies. When it comes to the Eurofighter, you probably have heard Chancellor Merz after my meeting in NATO headquarters last week. So he clearly was making remarks hinting at decisions to be taken. I don't want to say more about this. But generally, again, for NATO, we encourage allies not to have these restrictions. So one or two final questions, because then I think other ministers want to enjoy your company. Please.
How concerned are you about the investigation of the Belgian authorities for corruption?
Yes, well, the NATO procurement office in Luxembourg initiated these investigations, is working very closely with all the relevant authorities. And obviously we will continue doing that. We want to get to the root of this. We do not accept as NATO any form of whatever violence of judicial principles at all. But obviously I cannot say more about this because it is now with the judicial authority, so I should say only this. But we are fully cooperating, we initiated it, and we'll take the next steps collectively. Final question. Bit louder.
There's an ongoing debate inside the EU about defense budget. Is protectionism the right way to spend? Or should it be open, Canada, US?
NATO really encourages all allies to have no barriers between us. And when it comes, for example, to the defense industrial base, Turkey has a very impressive defense industrial base. It's already closely working in conjunction with companies all over Europe and in the United States and Canada. And I think when the EU is drawing up budgets and plans, that's very positive. We need that. But let's hope and make sure that collectively it's really about the whole of the alliance making sure that we can protect ourselves. And there is so much more money floating around the next 10 years when it comes to defense industrial production because of the extra expenditures. That when it comes to the defense dividend, all countries can have their positive outcomes from this. But then let's have no barriers. Final question from this side and then I go. Yes. Well, let's take this step by step. It is clear that Russia is sending only a lower level delegation now to Turkey, to these peace talks. It is the Ukrainians who have said we are ready to sit down with the Russians, to agree a ceasefire, to immediately go into negotiations about the next steps to bring this terrible war to an end. I'm not going to give any advice to the Americans. Why not? Because it was President Trump who broke the deadlock. I have full confidence in how he and his team are steering this, so they will think of the next steps and coordinate closely with allies. But clearly the ball is now in Russia's court. I'll see you later. Thank you so much.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Good morning, good to see you all. And for Latvia, obviously, this is a very important NATO informal ministerial. So we will be able to open ourselves up for a very wide variety of discussions. But the concentration and the direction from the Secretary General, of course, is about defense spending. So it will be the first exchange before the NATO summit in The Hague. We will be followed by defense ministers later in June. And the main point is, obviously, we face threats. Those threats we have jointly agreed, it's Russia as the most significant and direct threat to the Allies' security, Euro-Atlantic security, and terrorism as the most significant asymmetric threat, so non-state threat to our citizens. For that, we need defense investment. We need to counter Russia's capabilities that Russia has been building up, not only to fight the war in Ukraine, but also for a longer term. So we are very clear in Latvia. We have made the decision to raise defense spending to 5% next year. This year we will end up with about 4%. And we clearly know also the direction from our military leaders that they need those capabilities to fill the defense plans, the force structure, exercises, and so on and so forth. We take security very, very, very seriously. It's the basis of prosperity for all of us, and it's also about solidarity that across the alliance we have to be very serious about defense spending. So it's not just abstract, it's very concrete capabilities that we need. EU has stepped up with its decisions, so we are all in it. So it's a good process.
What can really be expected today in the negotiations?
You were first.
What is your take on NATO coming to this?
Oh, we didn't expect him to be serious about what he was saying. He never said he will be coming. He said we shall continue the negotiations. So it was more like what was happening in 22.
What can really be expected from the negotiations in Istanbul today at the lower level?
It depends again, you know, on expectations. We don't have very high expectations. We don't see indications of peace on the Russian side. Yes, Ukraine wants peace, we all want peace, but Russia doesn't want peace for now. There is no indicator Russia wants peace. Without that, but the process, okay, it's good that at least there is a meeting or something. But whether any decisions can be made, we'll see. The ceasefire that President Trump asked for hasn't come true. So we fully support US peace efforts for Ukraine, but also in other parts with Israel and Hamas. We fully support the release of hostages and ceasefire there. But in the same time, we have to be realistic that Russia needs to be pushed to peace. And weakening Russia's military capabilities is the most direct and cheapest way how to achieve peace in Ukraine.
And on the consequences.
Professor Birch, now it's about 30 to 70% EU or European allies and US. How do we need to change
I mean, the trajectory is good that European allies, Canada, are adding to their defense spending. But again, it's not about abstract percentages. We have capability targets that our military leaders have indicated, specific capabilities, air defense, long-range fires, logistics, enablers, and so on and so forth. It does cost money. So actually making those decisions and starting the process of procurement will also release the industry energy and incomes back into the economy. So it's a circle that is actually positive. President Trump has been right in his first term and his second term that the peace dividend that some of the European countries had taken has lasted for too long. The threats are prominent. It's not only the conventional war in Ukraine, the sub-conventional activities, which is in Russia's warfare doctrine, its preparations for war, the sub-conventional cyber attacks, the sabotage activities, and so on and so forth, killings, let's put it that way, in a number of territories of allies, have been happening. It's part of the preparations in Russian warfare doctrine. They don't separate necessarily unconventional, sub-conventional activities from conventional. It's a method that you use for a particular type of situation.
Sanctions, what needs to happen beyond the 17th sanction package to finally get Putin to engage in serious negotiations?
We all know that sanctions can be both drafted and applied in a stronger way. So that is what has been priority also for Latvia. We have, of course, contributed to this sanctions package. We support US sanctions package that Lindsey Graham has drafted. So if the peace talks don't lead to a constructive outcome, we are ready for more. So there's already a very clear idea what can be done as a next step.
Could you say what this could be?
No. That is always the negotiation process, both what countries submit and what comes out is pretty confidential. So it also needs to be, I wouldn't say surprise, but at least to have the effect on the other side. They should know what we are going to do. Listen, Russia is a threat, not only because of Ukraine. It had the intent, it had the capabilities, and it actually attacked Ukraine. We clearly see that the change in Russian force structures, that the plans of reform of the military force, the whole mode of Russian regime is about war. So we cannot expect that there is suddenly a change with regard to the plans elsewhere. So we have to be very strong, we have to be very sort of also calm, rational, but in the same time very determined to make sure that our people are protected across the alliance and that also services, internal security services know what is happening, what activities Russia, what influence activities Russia is doing, and to be able to respond. Deterrence is the key. Thank you. Oh, but we have agreed that across various documents and everywhere, and even in the NAC discussions, it's repeated and it's said there is no difference in analysis or assessment. So that is the basis for military planning, political planning, and that is the basis for decisions. So there's a logic into everything that NATO does. It's still the best and strongest defense alliance in the world, and that's our task to maintain it in such a way. That's why for more than 70 years we have had peace and growth, and we need to maintain it such a way. I thank you.
Aşağıdan sağa dön abi. Evet, araçları o tarafa abi. Genel sekreter yardımcısı.
Buna göre konuşlandığı için gelen adam şimdi burada durması gerekiyor. Bunlar bunu burada tuttuğu için iyice yanlış.
Abi yan taraf.
Tamam. Bak bunu da
NATO Genel Sekreteri, NATO Askeri Komite Başkanı, NATO Genel Sekreteri Yardımcısı, ben geldim abi, Uğur'dan. Aynen biri siyasi. Uğur Yavaş. Buradan aşağı gidiyor. Öyle kim ya? Bakan Bey'in takipleri ilgilenim de. NATO'nun hepsi geldi. NATO. Yardımcısı. O zaman onlar da makamını buraya indiriyor, seyretmeni burada. Ya şimdi var ya, ekibin yarısı birde, yarısı birde, sen birdesin. Burada mı? Ama o zaman sen bence aşağı in. Buraya bir kardeşim abi gider bu aşağıda kalıyor. Bu aşağıda ben buradayım abi. Bu aşağıda bir devam edelim abi.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to inform you about the incident what we had during the last couple of days with Russian shadow fleet in Estonian economical waters. So the shadow fleet vessel Jaguar without flag entered to Estonian economical waters, and we responded in a proper way. So our forces went to guide the shadow fleet vessel to our territorial waters to inspect, because there was no insurance, there was no flag, a typical Russian shadow fleet vessel. But what is different, and it is important, that Russian Federation sent a fighter jet to check the situation. And this fighter jet violated the NATO territory, close to 1 minute. This is something very new. So we need to understand that Russia has officially tied and connected itself to Russian shadow fleet. And also the NATO fighter stood up and went to inspect and check the Russian fighter. So this is totally different. And we need to understand that the situation is really serious. So we need to continue our operations guided by NATO on the Baltic Sea. As well, we need to understand that shadow fleet is a very serious thing, and the Russian Federation is ready to protect the shadow fleet as well. So once more, we need to understand that this time it was different, that the Russian fighter jet entered to NATO territory to check its shadow fleet, Jaguar. So this is something we need to understand. Secondly, today we're going to discuss many important topics, and one of the most important is that the NATO should and must increase the defense spendings. So Estonia has decided already from the next year to increase our real defense spendings up to 5.4% of GDP. So our official position is that the target for NATO member states should be 5% in the future. And we are not talking about anything else but the real defense spendings, what is defined in NATO rules, and this is the most important. But of course, we are talking about Ukraine and the peace in Ukraine, and at the same time, we are having very important meetings. But that Putin doesn't come shows that Putin is not taking seriously this opportunity to find a peace and start the real negotiations. The other way around, to sending the ultra-nationalist author of our different books to negotiate, who is actually the person is nobody in Russian politics. It's like the slap in the face, I think, for Ukraine, for all of us. So Putin is not taking this opportunity very seriously, and we must continue to support Ukraine. And we are discussing this as well during today's meeting. But there has been already a response. If you remember, last weekend, European Union leaders declared that if there won't be the ceasefire, 30 days, unconditional, then there will be as well sanctions. So yesterday, European Union agreed the 17th package of sanctions. So let's see what is going to happen if the meeting will take place today or tomorrow. But it's sure that Putin is not taking seriously this opportunity to start at least the ceasefire and start the negotiations for peace. So we need to stand together with Ukraine. And the third topic is about if the peace is coming. So Europe must take more responsibility about the security guarantees. And the Estonian government, even we are the border state of NATO, we have decided a couple of weeks ago that we will participate in the coalition of the willing with the military troops, pretty large scale. Because we are in the position that Europe, if the peace is coming, just and long-lasting, must put the skin in the game to guarantee the peace. And Estonia is ready to take the part. And I do hope that many other countries will declare soon what will be their commitments. But of course, our official position is that the best and the most efficient security guarantee for the long run for Ukraine and also for Europe is the Ukraine membership of NATO. So this is clear, but we are not there yet. We are not even there to have a ceasefire and start the negotiations. So thank you very much.
What needs to be be done beyond the 17th sanction package to finally get Putin to move to negotiations?
This is important that the European Union was able to make a decision about 17th sanction package. Very important is we are listing now lots of new shadow fleet vessels there, and also about energy and so on. But I'm adding one more thing. It's U.S. sanction package, which is waiting now in Senate. I was last week in D.C. and I met several senators, and now this package of sanctions has more than 80 senators' support, and this is a real package as well. There are like the sanctions against energy, against banking, but this is very important as well, the secondary sanctions. And some European countries as well will be hit. Whoever is dealing with Russia about energy will get as well 500% increase of tariffs. So all these combined, I think that we have an opportunity to push Putin to the corner. Putin is not doing well. Putin's economy is weak. Putin is not doing well on the battlefield, to be honest. He's just terrorizing the civil people, bombing every night. So we need to push Putin to the corner, and then maybe there is an opportunity to start having the real peace process and also the long-lasting and just peace. Thank you.
Sorry, okay. Those actions by Russia you just described, where is for you the red line in this hybrid warfare?
There is no red line, because we are dealing with hybrid attacks. I don't like the word actually hybrid. These are attacks which is not crossing the Article 5. But these are attacks. We are under the heavy attacks on the cyber level 24/7. We have arrested more than 14 persons during the last 1.5 years in Estonia, which has been funded, guided, and operated by the Russian secret services in Europe. We have many of these kind of attacks as well in Poland. The last report came about this mall. So there is no red line in it. Finally, if you see that Article 5 will be violated, then we act like this. So we don't see, like right now, the military actions. Because when I was defense minister 2016-17, we saw 120,000 troops the other side of our borders ready to go within 48 hours. These troops are gone. They are in Ukraine. So Russia has no military capabilities to attack full-scale NATO. But as I explained you as well, that just a day ago we had an incident when a Russian fighter entered to NATO territory. So to test NATO, Russia has an opportunity. It is not even close to 50-50 right now, and we have been already years on the position that Europe must take more responsibilities. But if we reach on 5% of level, so it will be more equal in the meaning. But for me and for Estonia, the question is not only to follow President Trump's asks in the meaning. We have decided to increase our defense spending up to 5.4% from the next year, because we agreed already 2 years ago in Vilnius summit, the NATO summit in Vilnius, the new regional defense plans. And this is the amount of money we need to fulfill the gaps what we have. So what we need to do as a NATO is to follow the agreements what we made already. And we know exactly what we need, and we know exactly the amount of money, how much we need to invest. And for us, the main question is not the money even and GDP. For us, the main question is the time, how quickly actually we will be able to fulfill these caps. Okay, thank you very much.
Rica ediyorum, benimle bozmayalım 5 dakika.
azaltalım artık. Yakınlardır. Kadir, İlhamiye Hanım geliyor mu? Hadi.
Tamam söyle ya şu an. Orada Reddit koruması var diyordu. Sorsunlar nerede?
Bak o, burada kim karşılıyor?
Ben karşılıyorum abi.
Ben de şuradan çekerim. Kapıyı açan. Sol arka var mı? Bekliyor.
Var abi.
Lunch. Tam takım kurması. Değil mi abi? O lunch'ın kim olduğunu biliyorlar. Genel sekreter nerede?
Aşağı inmişler.
Aşağı gitmesi gerek aşağıdan.
Vuruldu mu abi? Bir dakika.
Good morning, Espen Barth Eide from Norway. Good morning to everybody. We have a very important meeting today as we are preparing for the summit in The Hague in June. I think the two set of themes that will dominate the agenda is, of course, what's going in Ukraine right now, and even here in Turkey right now, what is happening and what is not happening in over Ukraine. Our commitment is very strong that we need to get to a ceasefire, get to peace, but that the quality of that peace is incredibly important. That means that it has to be permanent, it has to be for real, it has to be guaranteed and secured, and it has to leave Ukraine as a free, sovereign and independent country with its right to make its own choices now and in the future intact. I think that's within reach. And I think that we have a positive development when it comes to transatlantic unity and commonality of messaging to our Ukrainian friends, but also to President Putin, that if he is not ready to deliver, there will be more pressure, more sanctions, and more consequences, because this matters not only to Ukraine, but it's actually a major transatlantic issue, and all European countries will depend on what will be the outcome of the war in Ukraine. And the second theme is, of course, what's happening in NATO itself with the summit. There seems to be a strong understanding by, I would say, practically all members that Europe needs to do more, that we need to set a higher defense spending goal. As you know, numbers are being circulated. We are positive to establishing a higher level. But it is incredibly important that talking about more defense spending, it's also important to talk about smarter defense spending. I have also been a Minister of Defense, and I know that it's easy to lose money on defense. You need to invest smartly. You need to make sure that we have fewer different platforms, more common systems, and that we also learn from the most recent wars, particularly the war in Ukraine, that drones, artificial intelligence, new technologies very often can challenge legacy systems. And when you spend more on defense, you still have to be able to prioritize and make sure that you're not keeping and maintaining legacy systems that are not as relevant any longer, that you adapt to the times. And it's also very important that an agreement on increased spending also comes with a corresponding agreement on what is the major threat, common threat. And that an assertive Russia in Europe is a defining security challenge to Europe, that the commonality of threat assessment, a common position on how to use money smarter should accompany an agreement to spend more money on defense. And that's something we from Norway's side will argue for and also support. Thank you.
You mentioned 4 sanctions. So far the previous packages haven't seemed to be very efficient in the sense of getting Putin any closer to the negotiation table. So what could be even harder sanctions that could actually lead to Putin engaging in negotiations?
So there are conversations in the European Union about increased European sanctions, and there's also a package being discussed in the US Congress and Senate about an increased set of sanctions. And you are, of course, right that sanctions has not brought Putin to the table yet, but we do know that it hurts the Russian economy. And although the parts of the Russian economy is on steroids because it's a war economy, other parts of the economy is in serious trouble. Interest rates are very high, and this, of course, affects big parts of Russian society. So they do have an effect, but it seems that we might need to increase the pressure even further. So we support both the conversation that is going on in the United States, but also in Europe, on stronger sanctions. And these conversations are ongoing as we speak. What we do here in NATO is not to discuss the sanction packages because they belong elsewhere, but to argue that pressure on Russia has to be kept up. Okay? Louder, please. I think there, you know, we were seeing this development of a coalition of willing in Europe, which is the EU, but also non-EU countries like Turkey, like United Kingdom, Norway, and occasionally also with Canada that all agree that we have to do more. We have to do more for Ukraine, but we also have to do more in defense. And I think the call for a stronger European defense posture inside NATO as part of the transatlantic alliance is understood and has to be translated into capability goals and money. And this is very much what this meeting and the upcoming defense ministers meeting and then the summit in The Hague is all about, is how to go from understanding the situation to actually doing something about it. And that's why we also welcome European Defence Readiness 2030, the initiatives of the European Commission, not to do what NATO does, because NATO should remain the collective defense organization, but to strengthen cooperation, smarter use of money, reducing the number of different platforms, having a more modern integrated defense industry that is able to develop not only very capable weapons, but also in larger series. These discussions are very important, and we have to make sure that we accelerate them. And as we understand that Europe needs to do more, I repeat, we also need to do smarter, because more and smarter must be connected. Otherwise, it's just raising the cost of everything without actually getting more defense. All right.
Hi, Casper Veldkamp from the Netherlands. Very happy to be here. This informal foreign ministers meeting of NATO is a stepping stone towards the NATO summit at the end of June in The Hague in the Netherlands. And of course, as a host, representing a host country, I'm very happy to host that summit. A very important summit, I think one of the most important NATO summits in the recent history of NATO, the alliance. Of course, we'll also have the defense ministers who will meet in a formal meeting in Brussels at the beginning of June. The meeting today and the meeting of the defense ministers at the beginning of June are important stepping stones towards unity that we'll want to project at the NATO summit at the end of June in The Hague. It's very important that we discuss how to increase our defense spending. For me, it's very clear that we have to increase our defense spending in the years to come to strengthen our deterrence, and also because the United States is a very important ally and friend, makes it very clear to its European partners that we have to take more responsibility for our own defense, for the security of Europe, and which I find logical also to do.
What can really be expected from the negotiation talks taking place in Istanbul today, but without the Informal?
It's very clear to me President Zelensky is willing to go to Istanbul. Russian President Putin is not wanting to come. For me, that makes very clear where we need to put pressure to move towards peace.
But can you describe this?
No, we will discuss here. We have, of course, the ambassadors at NATO of the 32 allies have had a round of discussions on what spending target for NATO, what timeline, which steps in between. We now will first exchange views about that at the political level. Of course, whatever the outcome will be, it will lead to discussions also within the capitals, especially in governments with coalition systems. We'll need tough discussions how to get there and how to achieve such targets. Sorry? In my opinion, we will definitely need to clearly increase the defense spending of the NATO allies, especially the European allies, because we need to strengthen the deterrence. And it's also clearly requested by an important ally, the United States, that European countries take more responsibility for their own security.
If you're talking about putting more pressure on Putin, how exactly do you want to do this?
I think you see at this moment, you see the European Union moving. There has been agreement yesterday at ambassadors level for a 17 sanctions package on the Russian Federation, and on Tuesday next week we need the political approval of that 17 sanctions package. It is a significant package, including listing of many ships in the Shadow Fleet. It's a significant package in listing companies and individuals. It's really increasing, ramping up the pressure. From the United States, I find it very interesting what's happening on Capitol Hill with the initiative by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
But it's already the 17th package, and it seems not to be enough to get Putin on the negotiation table.
And that shows that Putin is dragging his feet towards, when we talk about peace for Ukraine, it's very clear to me that Ukraine is willing to discuss a ceasefire, willing to discuss peace, however difficult. They are willing to be here. President Zelensky is willing to go to Istanbul to discuss this with President Putin. President Putin is dragging his feet and not showing up. I will be very happy to host President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in The Hague. It is, of course, not to me as the host country, it's the Secretary General of NATO who will decide on what the invitations will be. For me, it's he will be very welcome in The Hague, always. I'm not speculating about what exactly the goals and targets will be that we're setting and with which time pass. That's typically a matter that we'll discuss here among allies, among friends, the 32 allies here today. Yeah, thank you.
şu an. They are stopped in the facility in their country.
Ya bunu Galatasaray'a yapacağız. Böyle bir şey olmaz. Ben açarım. Ben açarım. Yok. Gelsinler. Ama geldi. Karşıdan.
Good morning, you all, and welcome to Antalya. I hope you are enjoying your time here in Antalya. As Turkey, we are very much privileged to host this important meeting, especially in this very important and particular time. As you know, a lot of important and significant issues are taking place in and around our region, particularly Euro-Atlantic region. So, as allied partners, today we will have important discussions ranging from how to manage defense burden sharing, how to strengthen our defense industry base, and how to bring peace to Ukraine. And those are some of the important issues that we will discuss in preparation to the meeting that our leaders will have next month in Netherlands summit. And later today, I will hold a press conference, and during this press conference, I will also answer your questions. And thank you very much for your attention and interest. Thank you.
Very good morning. Looking forward to this very timely meeting. Unfortunately, time and again, it's about a ceasefire when it is about negotiating how to end the war. We have one chair empty, which is the chair of Vladimir Putin. So now I guess the entire world has realized that there's only one party not willing to engage in serious peace negotiations, and that certainly is Russia. Ukraine has declared time and again its willingness for a 30-day ceasefire, obviously ending the war, which it didn't start in the first place, and also negotiating with Russia and other partners around. But Russia is not available. Turkey has graciously offered the opportunity for us not just to meet here in Antalya, for discussing the preparations for the NATO summit this summer, but also a location for negotiations on the ceasefire. Now, what we would expect is that there would be an immediate ceasefire, which we also demanded as the European Union last weekend, together with the Americans. And since that is not happening, we are putting extra pressure on Russia through economic sanctions. The European Union is putting forward a 17th package of sanctions, and we hope that the US is following course, because Putin's war economy is really not doing too great, and we should realize that if we add some extra pressure, then we can push them over the edge to really stop this aggression. Thank you.
Extra pressure look like beyond the 17th sanctions package?
Well, you see, the strategy that we have been putting together and also implementing in the past 3 years, which is economic sanctions on Russia, which is aiding Ukraine militarily, and also ramping up our own deterrence and defense, which we will be talking about precisely here. that is exactly the right strategy. Now we just need to put it on full steam, and we are showing course with the sanctions. And also with the sanctions, one need to realize nobody ever said that they work overnight. Obviously, it has not been a full blockade of Russia's economy, but it really does translate into massive costs for the Russian economy, unfortunately also to its people, which means that at some point they will run out of money.
What do you think about that Germany and France postpone their sanctions, their tougher sanctions for Russia? Should they come in place now?
Well, I think the 70th package which we put together is the right one, and now of course we will be starting immediately on the new package, and also together with France and Germany, obviously. I think what doesn't work with Putin is really, trying to put an ultimatum out there, because he doesn't react to such ones. We just need to continue with the pressure, also realizing that obviously Russian aggression didn't start in Ukraine and it doesn't end with Ukraine. Our analysis, which we share in NATO, is that Russia will be forming a long-term strategic threat to the entire alliance. So therefore, we need to be keeping up the pressure for as long as we have evidence of Russia not only discontinuing its war in Ukraine, but also adhering to international law, which unfortunately it hasn't been doing for quite some time.
There were big expectations for this weekend, international diplomacy taking place in Turkey, and now it all seems to fall apart with Putin not attending, Trump not attending either. So what can we really expect from the Istanbul talks today?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm not expecting much. The reason is that Russia has not come one step forward. They are still sticking to their maximalist goals, which is to essentially extinguish Ukraine, and we can't have that. So I guess this serves for the purpose to discussing whether there was, any chance for a 30-day ceasefire, which I think is the requirement for having genuine peace talks, because then also we need these confidence-building measures. For instance, Russia to release their civilian detainees, and especially those deported children. So that would be the first step of them showing, yes, guys, we would be willing to engage in peace. Thank you so very much. Have a good day.
Good morning. A huge thanks to Hakan, the people of Turkey, the people of Antalya for being gracious hosts to this foreign ministerial. It's a very important event for us because it's the last, even though informal, but the last meeting of foreign ministers before the upcoming Hague summit, where we will have to show a very clear commitment to adapting the alliance to the necessities of the current geopolitical and security challenges that we have. It is about the challenges that we have. It is about the collective deterrence that we have to establish. It is about investments in our industrial base, widening our defense budgets. And I think the momentum that we have in the discussion is going in a very positive dynamic, is moving in the right direction. And in that sense, we remain optimistic, very optimistic about the role of the alliance, considering the security challenges that we have commonly. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. You can take this way, please.
Yes, morning everyone. So as we are heading to the Hague summit, we have the clear priorities in front of us. That is the NATO that is stronger, more ready, and more lethal. That's what we are committed to, and that's what we want to see in the Hague Summit, and once again to reaffirm that we are ready, we are prepared, and we are united. And also, once again, to reaffirm that our transatlantic bond is the absolute cornerstone of transatlantic security and of NATO. For Lithuania, there are three priorities. Number one, this is the defense spending. We have to increase defense spending in NATO because we made too many pledges to be better prepared, to be ready, to be with the better plans. Now we have to fulfill it with the defense investment. From Lithuania's perspective, 5%, this is doable, and we have to achieve it faster than the 2032, because we see the very tempo and the speed how Russia generates its forces now as we speak. So we have to do the same. From Lithuania side, we are number 2 this year with 4% of GDP for the defense spending. Next year, we are heading to be the number 1 with 5.25%. And our answer is it is doable. You need political will, so some of the financial planning, but it is doable because there is a lot at stake for us. This is the European security and stability. Number 2, Russia. We have to fulfill our plans and our pledges that we already stated in the previous summits, in Washington and in Vilnius summit. So this is now time to implement. As we see, Putin's strategy doesn't change. He looks for distraction, deceive, and also the delay of any proper process for the peace. We are strongly supporting the position of Ukraine, of US, and of our European allies to go for the ceasefire for at least 30 days. This is how we should proceed. And number 3, lastly, that is Ukraine. We understand that the strong armed forces of Ukraine will be the first defense line. That's why we have to support them. And we want to see the new support pledge for Ukrainian armed forces in the Hague Summit. And once again, the NATO membership is the best option to secure not only Ukraine, but also Europe. So we want it to be reconfirmed as it was previously and reiterated as it was previously done in the Washington summit. Thank you.
Hello and good morning again. I will make a short statement in English and then I will take your questions. Is it okay? Amid tremendous crisis around the world, it's time that the world just revisits the international security architecture. It's a very critical time, and I think it's important to work jointly on enhancing collective defense capabilities. Greece stands in favor of increasing the defense spending and defense capabilities. We need to address collectively and to synchronize the footage between the United States and the European Union in order to have an effective transatlantic defense against all type of contemporary asymmetries. Εν μέσω πολλαπλών κρίσεων, εν μέσω πολέμων οι οποίοι διαρκούν και πλήττουν την διεθνή συνοχή, εν μέσω ασύμετρων κρίσεων, εν μέσω κλιματικής κρίσης και εν μέσω υβριδικών απειλών, είναι χρόνος να επαναθεωρήσουμε τη βάση πάνω στην οποία έχει δημιουργηθεί η διεθνής αρχιτεκτονική ασφαλείας. Αυτό θα συζητήσουμε. Η Ελλάδα είναι υπέρ της ενίσχυσης της συλλογικής αμυντικής δυνατότητας και του συγχρονισμού του βήματος μεταξύ της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και του ΝΑΤΟ. Μόνο εργαζόμενοι μέσα από σύγχρονα βήματα, μέσα από κοινές δυνατότητες, μέσω διευρυμένων αμυντικών συστημάτων θα μπορέσουμε να αντιμετωπίσουμε την παγκόσμια κρίση η οποία αυτή τη στιγμή βρίσκεται σε εξέλιξη, κάθε μέρα και μια καινούρια εστία έντασης. Θα πρέπει...
Couple of days in the Middle East. You are really making progress. I think this is important. This shows American leadership not only on Ukraine, where it was the new American administration breaking the deadlock under the leadership of President Trump, but also now when it comes to the Middle East and of course all the other issues in the world, we collectively have to make sure stay stable and we need American leadership and you're providing that. Today will very much be about the summit in The Hague, and it is first of all ramping up defense spending in Canada and Europe. Nations are committed to that. We will have a debate on all the details, but this is really important because we have the ongoing Russian threat, we have the Chinese built up massively at the moment militarily, and of course the terrorism, the terrorist threat, which is still ongoing. But we also have to ramp up the defense industry because with only money we are not there. We also need the defense industrial output to make sure that we can fight off any threat to NATO territory. And of course we'll discuss Ukraine, how to make sure that we bring Ukraine to a lasting and durable peace. Again, welcome and thank you for your personal leadership on all of this, Marco.
Thank you, and I think today's meeting sets up what I hope will be, I believe, will be a very successful leaders level meeting coming up very shortly. NATO has the opportunity to grow even stronger in the alliance. You know, the alliance is only as strong as its weakest link, and we intend and endeavor to have no weak links in this alliance. So it's setting up nicely, and it's good to see. You know, the President has just submitted a budget for $1 trillion of defense spending, which is unheard of, it's unparalleled. And it's not just spending money, it's spending money on the capabilities that are needed for the threats of the 21st century. All kinds of different threats that look different from the threats in the past. And so I think today sets up that leaders meeting, which will be very productive. I also think, obviously, that the big issue on everyone's mind is what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. The President of the United States has been abundantly clear he wants the war to end. He's open to virtually any mechanism that gets us to a just, enduring, and lasting peace. And that's what he wants to see. He wants to see an end to wars. He wants to keep wars from happening. The purpose of NATO is to prevent wars through its strength. And that's why, you know, we want to see it grow stronger. Spending levels among all partners that allow everyone to be stronger and makes the alliance stronger. And also he wants to end wars. And that's the hope with Russia and Ukraine. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days in that regard, but we want to see progress made in that regard, and whatever mechanism is outlined, whatever the process is that needs to happen, I mean, we are open to being constructive and helpful in any way we can to end a conflict. I will say this, and I'll repeat it, that there is no military solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This war is going to end not through a military solution, but through a diplomatic one. And the sooner an agreement can be reached on ending this war, the less people will die and the less destruction there will be. And ultimately, that's what the President's goal is. He wants, as you've seen through his trip that is currently underway in the Middle East, and he talked about in his speech a couple days ago, I hope you had a chance to watch it. It was a very good speech. It was an important speech. And what it marks is when he's interested in building things, not destroying. He wants economies and countries focused on building things, making things, providing opportunity and prosperity for its people. And he's against all the things that keep that from happening, like wars, like terrorism, and all the instability that comes with that. That's why he's made a bold decision when it comes to Syria, and in the hope that the new authorities there will take this opportunity to rebuild that country and provide and take it from being a source of instability to a source of stability. And that's why he wants to see the war in Ukraine end, because there are people suffering, there are things being destroyed, there are lives being upended. There are millions of Ukrainians that live outside of their borders in their country right now. And the world the President wants to see is one in which people can come back home and begin to rebuild their country and spend their time focused on how to build the economy, not how to fight a war. But obviously we're in a very difficult spot right now, and we hope that we can find the steps forward that provide for the end of this war in a negotiated way and the prevention of any war in the future as a result, meaning a peace that's going to ensure not just that this war ends, but also prevents a new one from starting at some point down the road. So a lot of work. We remain committed to that. Obviously, like everyone else, impatient. We want to see it happen, and but it's difficult. But you know, hopefully, progress will be made here soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What kind of progress do you expect?
Keine ernsthaften Verhandlungen, und das wird Folgen haben. Es gibt eine große Entschlossenheit in Europa, dann auch über weitere Sanktionen zu entscheiden. Und ich gehe auch davon aus, dass auch in den Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika darüber nachgedacht wird. Deshalb, es ist nie zu spät, an den Verhandlungstisch zu kommen. Die dringende Aufforderung heute ist an Russland, die Situation zu überdenken und die Initiative des amerikanischen Präsidenten positiv aufzugreifen, jetzt zu Verhandlungen zu kommen.
Herr Außenminister, Sie haben es angesprochen, Sanktionen müssen innerhalb von wenigen Tagen kommen, oder wie viel Zeit hat man da noch? Und hatten Sie den Eindruck aus dem Gespräch mit Herrn Rubio, dass die Amerikaner ebenfalls bereit sind, mit dem Westen an einem Strang zu ziehen, mit Europa nochmal an einen Strang zu ziehen. Und eine kleine Ergänzungsfrage, sind die Amerikaner einverstanden mit dem, was sie vorgeschlagen haben, was das Spending angeht, zu den Verteidigungsausgaben? Also sind die Amerikaner zufrieden damit, was Deutschland angeht?
Die Amerikaner sind sehr zufrieden mit dem, was Deutschland leistet. Ich habe gesagt, dass wir bereit sind, in eine Führungsrolle in Europa zu gehen, Vorbild zu sein und andere aufzufordern, uns zu folgen. Da gibt es eine völlige Übereinstimmung mit den Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika. Und das gilt auch jetzt für die Frage, was Sanktionen angeht. Ja, es gibt eine starke Bewegung, das wissen Sie, im amerikanischen Senat, wo viele Senatorinnen und Senatoren sich bereit erklärt haben, auch ein Sanktionsgesetz zu erlassen. Und die amerikanische Administration geht davon aus, dass das geschehen wird, wenn Russland sich nicht bewegt. Insofern, die USA und Europa lesen vom selben Blatt. Ich glaube, das ist ein Vorschlag, der abgestimmt ist, der auch mit der amerikanischen Seite abgestimmt ist oder vorabgestimmt ist. Wir werden darüber heute natürlich noch einmal beraten. Aber man sollte das Ergebnis sehen. Und das Ergebnis sind in der Tat die 5%, die Präsident Trump gefordert hat, die er für notwendig hält. Und wir folgen ihm da. Und wir sehen darin ein klares Bekenntnis der Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika zu Artikel 5. Die NATO steht eng zusammen. Und jeder muss wissen, dieses Verteidigungsbündnis ist durch diesen beklagenswerten Krieg stärker geworden und steht enger zusammen als je zuvor. Herzlichen Dank.
It's very important to be here in Turkey at this time with the Euro-Atlantic community coming together in such extensive numbers, representing the greatest alliance in history, frankly. And we come with one single message: to stand by Ukraine and to ensure that we get a just and lasting, enduring peace. And the readiness for that peace is demonstrated by President Zelensky being here in Turkey as well. And of course, we watch closely as we head to these talks, noting the Russian low-level individuals who are coming to represent the Russian side. It's hugely important that we redouble our efforts across the Euro-Atlantic to recommit to defence spending. It was back in 2014 in Wales that we made the 2% pledge, and I'm delighted that the UK met that pledge right throughout this modern history. But of course, it's now right that we step up that commitment. You saw that with Prime Minister Starmer making clear that we would meet 2.5% by 2027, and heading in to the next Parliament, we would get to 3%. This alliance, all of us were committing far more during the Cold War. It's hugely important that we recommit to Europe's defences and that we step up alongside our US partners in this challenging geopolitical moment where there are so many pressures across the world, and particularly in the Indo-Pacific. I look forward to speaking to European foreign ministers today as we make that pledge to ensure that right across the Euro-Atlantic areas, our people are safe, there is enduring peace, and that we stand on the shoulders of those who committed to our security, as of course we recall victory in Europe 80 years ago. Thank you very much indeed.
DRT? two doorsteps.
Nous sommes ce matin en Turquie et l'Ukraine a tenu sa parole. Volodymyr Zelensky est présent avec ses conseillers, avec son ministre avec lequel je me suis entretenu à l'instant pour négocier la paix. Mais face à eux se trouve une chaise vide, la chaise sur laquelle devait s'asseoir Vladimir Poutine. Vladimir Poutine qui traîne les pieds et qui, de toute évidence, n'a pas envie d'entrer dans ces négociations de paix, alors même que le président Trump a marqué sa disponibilité et sa volonté de faciliter ces discussions. Alors bien sûr, aujourd'hui, une équipe technique diligentée par Vladimir Poutine se rendra en Turquie où elle rencontrera une équipe ukrainienne. Mais c'est une manière pour la Russie d'éviter les sanctions massives que les États-Unis et les Européens s'apprêtent à infliger à la Russie sur le plan énergétique et sur le plan financier pour contraindre Vladimir Poutine à mettre fin à sa guerre d'agression contre l'Ukraine. De ces discussions techniques qui vont se tenir ici en Turquie, nous pouvons espérer obtenir un cessez-le-feu sans condition, immédiat, qui permette l'ouverture de négociations. Mais ce que nous voulons éviter, c'est de retomber dans les trois pièges qui ont conduit les négociations qui se tenaient à Istanbul en 2022 à l'échec. Le premier de ces pièges, c'est que des discussions se tiennent sans un cessez-le-feu, parce qu'on ne négocie pas sous les bombes. Et en 2022, c'est notamment le massacre de Boutcha, perpétré par la Russie, qui a conduit ces négociations à échouer. Le deuxième des pièges, c'est de vouloir imposer à l'Ukraine une démilitarisation, c'est-à-dire de priver l'Ukraine par avance des garanties de sécurité qui permettraient à la paix d'être véritablement durable. Et puis le troisième piège dans lequel il ne faudrait pas tomber une deuxième fois, c'est celui qui consiste à vouloir lever les sanctions au début des négociations plutôt qu'à la fin. Et donc nous, les Européens, nous voulons accompagner l'Ukraine dans ces négociations de paix, puisque nous voulons la paix, mais nous nous préparons aussi, avec des sanctions qui seraient massives, à contraindre Vladimir Poutine à initier ces négociations de paix s'il continuait à les esquiver. We are today in Turkey, where Ukraine has held its words. President Zelensky is present with its counselors, with his minister, with whom I met a few minutes ago. But in the face of Ukraine, there is an empty chair. The chair that was awaiting Vladimir Putin, despite of the fact that President Trump has expressed its availability, its willingness to facilitate discussions between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, there will be a technical team sent by Vladimir Putin to discuss with the Ukrainian team today in Turkey. Because, of course, Russia is willing to avoid the massive sanctions on oil, on the financial sector, that the US and that Europeans are preparing in the instance where Russia would keep refusing to cease fire. But the best we can hope for in these technical discussions is indeed a ceasefire, an immediate, unconditional ceasefire that would allow for proper peace negotiation. And what we want to avoid at all costs from those discussions that are going to start in Istanbul is for us collectively to fall in the three traps that led the previous discussions 3 years ago to failure. The first trap is to discuss or to hold talks while bombs are falling on Ukraine. Because last time, the Bucha massacre that happened during those negotiations led to their failure. The second trap is to try to impose the demilitarization of Ukraine and to prevent Ukraine from seeking credible security guarantees from its partners after the war. This would lead those discussions to failure because there can be no lasting peace without credible security guarantees. The third trap is to front-load sanction lifting rather than backloading them. This again led to the failure of the Istanbul negotiation 3 years ago. As far as we're concerned, Europeans are united. They demonstrated it last weekend in Kyiv. We're supporting Ukrainian efforts to enter those peace negotiations, and we're preparing for massive sanctions on oil and financial sector in the instance where Vladimir Putin would keep avoiding such discussions. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to announce yesterday Italy achieved the 2% of our GDP for security defense. The document is on the table of Mr. Rutte. The Prime Minister will announce officially this result during the Den Haag meeting. This is a clear and important message to our friends of NATO. It's a clear message to the Americans. We are ready for doing more for our security in the next years.
Minister, what do you expect from the negotiation talks in Istanbul today on the lower level?
Do you have another question? I want to be optimistic, but I don't know if Russia wants to achieve this goal. Probably Russia want to move on with the war in the next month because it's difficult for Putin to change his organization. There are 1 million of soldiers paid more than the workers in Russia. The Russian industry is involved in defense. For this, for Putin, we need more time. But this is his job. We want peace, peace with justice. We need to protect Ukraine. We need to respect the international law. Today's meeting is a first step. But we need more Russian engagement for achieving ceasefire before and peace after. Our job after the peace is to protect Ukraine, to protect Europe from Ukraine to Portugal. But we are working hard for peace, but we need concrete actions by the Russians.
Minister, today Italy is reaching the 2%.
Yes.
But the discussion today is about 5%. Is Italy ready for this enormous investment? And do you think that the EU has to step up to help member states to reach this new investment?
We are in favor, but we need time. We need to debate on this, but it's important to respect our engagement on the 2%. This is the first step. Then it's possible to do more. It's possible to increase the money for defense. I prefer to talk on security, because defense security is not only weapons. It's the protection of every European citizen, every Italian citizen. For this, we are ready for talking on this, but we are in favor the strongest pillar, of the second pillar of the NATO. There is a big pillar, this American pillar. Now we need to work hard for a biggest pillar, European pillar. We need to do more. We want to move on in this direction. We need time, of course, but I think we need the European defense for security. But security is a concept more important than defense. Defense is part of the security. For this, we are ready for doing more. It's also, security is also infrastructure, cyber security, not only weapons. Security is the protection against terrorism, against cyber attack. For this, we need to talk on this, but we are ready for the protection of our citizens, Italian citizens, European citizens. I believe in Europe, I believe in European defense.
How do you consider the agreements between Turkish companies and Italian aerospace companies? Will we see more this kind of
But the relations between Italy and Turkey are very, very positive. 2 days ago, a long call between President Erdogan and Prime Minister Meloni, but from the Berlusconi government, the link between Italy and Turkey has been very, very positive in every, very sector. We are part of NATO. We are Mediterraneans. For us, it's important to work together in the Mediterranean Sea. First of all, we need to look at Libya. Yesterday, I have spoken with the Minister of Foreign Affairs on this. I am concerned for the situation in Libya. Now, probably there is a ceasefire, but we need to look also at the south. For this, Turkey will be very, very important. We are ready for doing more with Turkey in many, many sectors, also in the defense sector. Absolutely, because I think it's important to back the European defense in the industrial defense. When I was commissioner, I worked with Commissioner Barnier. At this time, I was commissioner for industry, and Barnier was commissioner for internal market. We approved, we proposed to the commission. The commission approved our proposal for a European defense strategy. But I think we need to be open for a cooperation with the countries, NATO countries, for example, America, Turkey, UK, but also with Japan. We are working, for example, as Italy, for aircraft, Italy, UK, Japan. This not only Europe is important, I agree, but we need to be open for cooperation with other countries, friends of us, underline, Turkey, USA, Japan, and UK, of course.
Minister, we are now in the adoption phase of the 7th sanctions package already, and Putin doesn't seem to be any closer to negotiation. So what kind of stronger sanctions will there still be to get?
But as you know, the sanctions are not, for us, Italian sanctions are European sanctions. It's impossible to decide alone. But we are in favor. If Putin wants to move on in the same direction, we need other sanctions, so we are in favor of this. Okay? I have the family photo. I'm sorry.
1700 mü verdi sana? Gayet.
Guys, don't stand on the stages.
Please go back, sir.
Yes, not on the stages.
Show up 5 seconds straight in front of you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We go to Good morning. Good morning to all of you, and I really want to welcome you to Antalya for this important Foreign Ministers meeting, and I want to thank our colleague from Turkey. Really, Hakan, thank you so much for making this possible, and the hospitality, it is really amazing. We will have a very important meeting today in the run-up to the summit in The Hague. We need to discuss how to make sure that NATO will be stronger. That means more defense spending. It means more defense industrial production. But also how to make sure that NATO is fair, that we equally distribute the burden amongst allies, and that is only fair. But also a NATO which is more lethal, not by becoming offensive, but by being so strong that nobody will ever attack us, because they know if they would, this defensive alliance, if we will be attacked, our reaction will be devastating. That's what we will discuss today, how to make sure that we make a success out of the The Hague summit. It will be a splash of a NATO which is standing there at the world stage, stronger than ever. So again, thank you for being here, and now it is my honor to give the floor to our colleague from Turkey. Hakan, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. And it's a great pleasure to host you all in Ankara, and welcome again. This is one of the last high-level meetings before our summit in The Hague next month, as you know. And the Euro-Atlantic area suffers from multiple crises and conflicts. Therefore, this meeting will be an occasion to demonstrate our continued unity and solidarity. Issues like transatlantic burden sharing and defense industrial cooperation are also high on our agenda. In this regard, we wholeheartedly support Secretary General's vision of alliance-wide defense industrial base, in his words, from Texas to Ankara. These are among the most critical enablers in shaping the future of European security architecture. Of course, our efforts to bring the war in Ukraine to a just and durable end will be an important part of our discussions. You all know that Turkey has always stressed the need for a diplomatic track to this end. Now, after 3 years of immense suffering, there is finally a window of opportunity. The talks in Istanbul hopefully may open a new chapter. Our meeting today will be an important occasion to discuss how we can individually and collectively support this process. On the other hand, our southern neighborhood and the Balkans are also an important part of NATO's 360-degree approach to Euro-Atlantic security. We will also reflect on what we can do as allies to deepen our partnerships from the Middle East to Africa and Asia-Pacific to enhance stability. Finally, terrorism continues to pose a grave threat to the security of all allies. We will also discuss how best we can strengthen our solidarity against this scourge with concrete steps. In short, NATO, as the backbone of Euro-Atlantic security and defense, will continue to be the essential transatlantic forum to consult, coordinate, and act on all security matters among allies. We have no doubt that our meeting today and the Hague Summit next month will reinforce this indispensable character of our alliance. On our part, as Turkey, in addition to today's meeting, the fact that we will also host the next summit in 2026 demonstrates our steadfast commitment to the alliance and what it stands for. Once again, welcome to Antalya for this important meeting, and I look forward to our discussions under the able leadership and moderation of the Secretary General, Mark Rutte. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That ends the public part of our meeting. It ends the public part of our meeting. So in the spirit of democracy, I have to ask the press gently to leave the room. But there will be press conferences after this meeting, no doubt, of many of us, so you will get a full readout.